Hello and welcome to Politics. We're coming up to the end of the year, coming up to the Christmas break, coming up to New Year, and an opportunity for all to turn over a new leaf, something no doubt the current French socialist government will be hoping to do. Difficulties in the polls, growing disunity within its ranks, and accusations that perhaps it hasn't used its first 6 months to deal with the economic urgency as many thought it should, relying instead on societal fig leaves instead. That's something we're going to debate with the MPs that are with us today, with the political analyst as well. Amongst my guests, Arnaud Leroy, who is a socialist MP, represents in fact French voters who live abroad in certain parts of the world. To my left, Jonas Haddad, who represents for his part the French right. You are the National Secretary of the UMP, the French Conservatives. And to my right as well, Thomas Guénolé, who is the neutral one amongst us and a political analyst and professor of political science at Sciences Po. Thanks very much indeed to all of you for being with us. We're going to begin with a look at French politics from outside, a look at French politics through the prism, it's true, of The Economist, its latest stab at the French government and what it's doing. It's not the first time, of course. The time bomb at the heart of Europe. I'm going to put to you, Arnaud Leroy, that seen from outside at least, François Hollande is being accused of not having dealt with the urgency that presents itself, which is the state of France's public finances and the fact that economically it is facing a crisis that is only going to get worse.
Honestly, I don't think you can say that we've been accused of not trying to cope with the urgencies. We don't want to find us in front of a wall where we are only looking at urgencies. That's the point. I mean, you could try to solve the urgencies immediately by taking measures which are extremely short terms. That's the point. That's what we try to avoid. We have a huge crisis, and it has been said during the campaign. We have difficulties with our partners in Europe. I mean, Spain, Portugal, Greece, Italy, and where we see that nothing is solved, basically. We don't want to take, like quick measures, because the country doesn't need quick measures. It needs strong, deep and structural reforms. And to get such a reforms, you need to build a consensus. And you won't be able to go with your reforms without consensus in France. So that's our strategy. That's why maybe it's a bit slow for some, but for us, that's a correct rhythm.
Jonas Haddad, to be fair, the French right fared no better in sorting this out itself.
Yes, but I do not agree on the point that during the presidential campaign, the crisis was enough the issue. The main issue during the past campaign was Sarkozy or not. And that's why François Hollande won this campaign, because he didn't talk about the crisis. It was like last month that François Hollande said in the big press conference with all the countries that were present, look, now I think that there is a crisis. And during the campaign, not a word about this crisis. And so now you are in front of the wall and you have to take quick measures, because we're not much at the time of François Mitterrand, that is your model. We're now in the big society with a world that is moving so fast that we have to make quick measures. And the consensus is necessary, but the ability to take decisions fast and strong are more important than always talking. Let's take a look about the poverty. It's always talking, and increasing the taxes, and no real measures to get out from this really serious situation.
We have been talking a great deal, of course, about, Thomas Guénolé, to you this time, about taxes, the rich fleeing the country. It is one of the things that we come back to regularly. What do the French people, we've seen how France is seen from outside by Anglo-Saxons in particular. How do the French themselves perceive their president and how he's dealt with the economic crisis and the direction in which he's going, to pick up that point about taxes?
The direction about taxes. In fact, there is one similar, if you consider fiscal policy and the policy about sustainable public finances, that's the technical expression, there's a common point between the left and the right, and then a big difference. The common point is austerity. They both agreed on the same treaty, which is a European treaty, which makes France has the obligation to reduce its deficit. They have no choice. They signed it. The right signed it, and the left then accepted it.
But the left came in, of course, saying that it was adding all this growth.
Well,
to...
it's definitely not in the treaty. So there may be an intent, there may be a possible plan, but considering what's written, there's nothing at all. But there is a big difference. The difference between them, objectively, is who is going to pay and in which proportions. The right tends to make VAT higher, for instance, and all proportional taxes, in fact, while the left tends to make higher what is proportional taxes, just like what we call in France impôt sur le revenu. So your question was about French voters. How do they feel? They understand that some of them are going to have to pay more and more and more. And the fear is, am I one of those who are going to have to pay more? And the question, it's always the same problem with voters. If it's your fiscal situation, if it's more positive than the others, it's normal. But if it's the same benefit advantage for another voter, then it's a privilege, and it's something that shouldn't exist. So we've got a growing crisis inside the population around only one single key political question: who's going to pay the bill?
And in fact, on that point, maybe we can have a look precisely at the very latest polls. Both the president's popularity and sliding popularity, and those things that make him particularly unpopular at the moment. The very latest polls were taken between November and December, and you'll see when they come up a sharp drop: 41% back in November, 35% in December. The headlines have been difficult. The news has not been favourable. And if we have a look at what it is that French people attribute François Hollande's impopularity to, it's very interesting. You'll see that first on the list is the rise in taxes. 31% believe, to pick up on what you were just saying, that his unpopularity is down to that. 27%, that is the second batch, believe that it is the economic and social crisis. 26% believe that it is because he doesn't provide a sufficiently credible solution to that crisis. On those taxes, there is a perception that taxes are rising. I have here, not this week, but last week's Le Point, those who've had enough and who are right and who are leaving. And we've heard a great deal about it in the headlines. There is a perception that François Hollande is driving those that have the means, those that might be in a position to help kickstart the economy, away from the country.
You're right using the word perception, because it's not our goal and our belief. I mean, just to come back at what my colleague said regarding the campaign, François Hollande, early in his campaign, even during the primary election, said we will have to raise the taxes. The question is exactly what you said. Who will pay? We are there today. I mean, we have to match with some figures, like deficit. We have our credibility on the table, and this, it's not from left or right, it's a French situation, and
yes,
we should.
François Hollande never mentioned the fact that we have been in a crisis.
Let me finish.
To raise taxes is okay, but not in the crisis.
When you start a campaign saying that you will have to raise the taxes, and try to look in your side, try to look at your side. When you start a campaign saying this, I mean, you assume, you explain you are in crisis. Nobody will win an election saying from the first day, I will raise the taxes. François Hollande did. Okay, maybe we didn't surf on the crisis because you were trying to hide yourself behind the crisis. So we were in a position where we have to explain something else to win. We can discuss this. It's not the point today. We are facing a situation where we are in trouble. Let's be frank. France is not in an easy situation. We have to clear some message. This type of message are problems for us when you have a part of the, let's say, force vive, as we said, feeling the sensation, okay, we have too much pressure, we are not respected, that's the point as well. We have to find a solution and a way to discuss, because we won't be able to solve the issue by not acting on those taxes. It's a lie.
It seems to be, we've just seen these by-elections, and of course by-elections are too small to go on these 3 elections that began on Sunday.
Oh, yeah,
which,
you mean the 3 ones,
in which, so very little, no great barometer of where we are politically, but a sense that, as we expect, the socialists aren't doing terribly well in public opinion.
Funny you're saying that, because in fact I had to write an analysis just Monday about that, and comments on these 3 elections misunderstood the data. Here's what happened really precisely. In fact, if you take the total of the voters, every side lost votes. Every side. Left, right, National Front. Okay? Every one of them.
Because people simply didn't turn out.
But, yeah, for instance, in Val-de-Marne, which is for foreigners watching us, just a department in France, in Val-de-Marne, 71% of voters didn't go to vote. So every side, in a percentage of total voters, lost votes, but not in the same proportions. The one that mostly, 2 out of 3 elections, did lose the fewer points was the National Front. So in relative terms, the National Front won these elections.
By doing less worse than the others.
Yeah, by doing less worse than the others. No. For instance, in one of these elections, there was, in fact, it was in Hauts-de-Seine, if I remember well, with Patrick Devedjian. The National Front lost only 2 points, by memory, right? So I'm not sure of exact figures. The right, it was about 6 or 7, and the left, 11. Just to finish the analysis, what is funny is when you vote for general legislative elections, parliamentary elections, the goal is, why do you vote? You vote to get a majority for your side. That's why you go there. But when there's only an election in your neighborhood, you only vote to support or to sanction the MP that is already there.
And on broadly local issues.
But when it's already someone from the right wing who has got the seat and has had the seat for decades, just that point is important. Well, when you're a left-wing voter, you tend to stay at home because it's not the same necessity. The left already has its majority at the parliament.
Which explains it in good deal
that's
the
why
voter.
the left was so under-mobilized.
The voter apathy. Arnaud Leroy, while we see voter apathy, for the reasons you've just explained, we're also seeing something else happen in French society and French politics, which is this apparent thirst, need to discuss societal questions. We've seen these extraordinary demonstrations against the changes to marriage laws, which would allow gay men and women to get married, as they do in a growing number of countries elsewhere. We're expecting one of the biggest demonstrations Paris, no doubt, will ever have seen in January, if the predictions are correct. Why this backlash against noises being made by your party that changes should be made to the laws as they are?
Backlash, I won't use this word. I mean, for us, the decision has been made by many more people that you will never get in the street. It was in the 6th May last year, not last year, but 6th May for the presidential election. It was clear, and we've been attacked during the whole campaign on these 2 issues, because you missed one regarding the right for the non-EU citizens to vote for the local elections. I mean, it has been solved for us by the votes. So
at the general election.
That's why we proceed further. And we are trying now to accommodate, we cannot accommodate, but to hear all the point of views in some auditions by special committees in the parliament. You've got today people from Portugal, Spain, coming to explain what is going on in their country, why they succeed. They bring the proof that it won't make people turning crazy, society won't collapse, and this is on track. I don't think we can speak about backlash. You've got people trying to motivate their side, which is, we will do the same for something which is in our, let's say, earth of thinking.
These issues do seem in the last few weeks to have taken centre stage. You're quite right, not just the gay marriage issue, but also the changes to the law that would allow foreigners to vote in local elections. it seems to foreigners looking at French politics inexplicable that these particular issues should be rousing passions so much at a time when, as we've been saying over the course of this debate, there are so many more urgent questions that need to be resolved.
No, you're right, because this is inexplicable, because there is an explanation. The explanation is in the analysis of Terra Nova, that is the socialist think tank that decided to create a new majority for the Socialist Party that said, okay, let's take over from the people that are working in the industry, and let's take a new majority that will be built with the minorities, the people that are recognizes themselves like minorities. So now it's simple. The Socialist Party trying to give to everyone, to
Class, if I may.
plus middle classes, minorities plus middle classes, trying to give to every minority the right to express itself. So now this is simple. You have been elected by minorities, and you're trying to recognize to minorities their vote, and that's the reason why. You're talking about the auditions at the parliament. When the people from the Catholic Church, from Judaism, from the Muslim religion, have been received by the MPs and the socialist MPs in the parliament, they heard them for 5 minutes, each of them. 5 minutes for the biggest religions in our country. That's the reason why you have the backlash, because some and many are heard on what they want, and the biggest religions in our city, and we now know that France is important, the religion in France is important, have been heard for 5 minutes of each of them.
On which
so
point
this is not normal, and that's the reason of the backlash.
I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there, and I'm apologies we haven't been able to come back to you to get an answer on that. So we will be back, of course, next week for another look at the politics of the week. Thank you very much to today's guests for having been with us. A look there with my guests at the very latest on the French political scene. That brings us to the end of the time we had. I do hope you'll join us soon again. Goodbye.